Welcome to True Crime and Wine. I am Sherrilyn Dale, and I am so glad you found me. Today we are just jumping right into it. No messing around, no updates, except for I still have a headache, so maybe I should go and get that checked out. Besides that, everything's good. I hope everything's good for you. And yeah, love you. Oh, follow me on Threads. I'm really liking Threads. Okay, that's it. We are going to start with our riddle. Okay, so today's riddle is, I have a neck with no head and two arms with no hands. What am I? Before we get started, I want to give a huge thank you to my friends over at Bellesa for not only sponsoring today's video, but for literally sending out free vibrators and gift cards for vibrators to everyone who signs up for my giveaway. If you've never heard of Bellesa before, they are a bi-woman company who focuses on all things sexuality. We're talking sex toys, erotica, sex education, and their mission is to empower everybody to embrace, explore, and celebrate their sexuality. They have something for literally everybody's needs. We all like different, like focus points, if you know what I mean. And so whatever you like, they've got you covered. My personal faves are the Pebble. Like, not only is it just so cute, but it's a suction and vibration controlled manually, and it's designed perfectly to fit in your hand. It's an extension of you. Also really important, there are no annoying repetitive pattern modes. I just really wanted to stress that. And then the other is the Air Vibe Pro. And this one is dual stimulation. And she's silent, but she's deadly. Remote control operated. How beautiful are these though? Really. These discreet cases are also rechargeable, waterproof. And when I say discreet, I mean discreet. When I had these set out, I had them nice and cutely closed like this, and Big Guy came into the room and oh my gosh, he's so cute, so don't make fun of him. But he was like, oh, did you get sent some new earbuds or something like that? It was a really adorable moment. But I mean, I don't blame him. They look adorable. Anyways, don't miss out on your opportunity to get in on this giveaway. Like I said, there is a free toy or gift cards for toys for everyone who signs up through the link in my bio. Thank you again so much, Bellesa, not only for taking care of me, but also taking care of my supporters. We love and appreciate you. All right, today's case has just been breaking my heart the past couple weeks that I've been looking into it. I think about this man so often, and just how messed up and greedy and disgusting people can be. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say as I segue into it. But we're going to Lakeview, Florida today. In 2006, a struggling father named Abraham Shakespeare purchased a winning lottery ticket. The initial jackpot was $30 million. He ended up taking the lump sum payout, which is usually half of the winnings. But even with that, it was $17.5 million. He went from rags to riches. And only 3 years later, in 2009, he went missing. There was a lot of pressure that the winnings had caused him, but as people who were close to Abraham kind of got to talking, they started looking into a new friend that he had made. And no one, I don't think, could have imagined the evil. I wish there was an email warning him that he had befriended. Abraham was born on April 24th, 1966. Him and his mother, Elizabeth, were very close. But growing up, he went through hardships. His family was by no means well off, and there were some struggles there. He dropped out of school in grade 7, and he couldn't read or write. Dropping out of school led him down not the best path. He was doing burglaries to make money. He went to jail a couple times because of it. But then he started working labor jobs and doing things here and there as he could to make an income and stay out of jail. It wasn't easy, but he worked hard, especially after his son Moses was born. Those who knew him said that he was motivated, like he would do what he needed to provide. And one of the things he did was he'd often clean the barbershop of one of his friends. He'd come around weekly and keep it nice and spiffy for him. But in November 2006, he was working for a food delivery service and he was a truck driver's assistant. So on November 15th, he and his coworker were doing an overnight drive. His name was Mike Ford, and they were doing this drive to Miami. So they make a pit stop, have some snacks, get some drinks, go to the bathroom. They stop at a convenience store in Frostbury called Town Star, and Mike was going in for a drink and snacks and asked Abe if he wanted anything. Abraham said, "Yes, I'll take 2 lotto tickets." He gave him $5 and he got 2 tickets. They were $2 each. They go about their travels, and 2 days later, he won $30 million. Like I said, he ended up taking the $17 million payout instead of annual installments. And he definitely enjoyed this new taste of a life that he could have never dreamed of, I'm sure. He bought some nice cars. He had a BMW, I believe, a Hummer, I think, and maybe a Corvette. Maybe I'm making that up. He also bought a $1.1 million home in the gated community of Red Hawk, and he ensured to quickly put $1 million away in a trust fund for his son. Even though he was enjoying his winnings, one of the biggest parts of his spending was actually helping others, spending it on other people. And I'm talking like helping. Not like, oh, can I help you with your groceries? Can I pay this for you? Can I buy you a laptop? I don't know. We're talking houses, paying off some of his friends and family's mortgages, buying people vehicles, paying for medical bills, paying for funerals in the community. He helped so many people in his community, a lot of people that he didn't even know. And unfortunately, in these situations, it does attract a lot of people who find their way to you looking for a handout. And not just a handout. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of people who are very deserving of some help, who desperately need it. But there's also like this pressure coming and this sense of entitlement from people. He started feeling a lot of pressure. There were hands just left, right, and center, just expecting a piece of the pie. And according to a lot of his friends, there were people who were literally lined up outside of his house waiting to talk to him to borrow money from him. He couldn't even just leave his house and go to the store without somebody coming up to him and asking for money for just like a plethora of reasons.
I really would like my old life back where I could walk the streets like a normal person.
Then all of a sudden in April 2007, his coworker, the one that was on that road trip with him, the one that went into the convenience store to buy the ticket for him with Abraham's money, we'll add that in there. He comes up to Abraham and he's like, "You need to share the winnings with me since I was the one who went into the store." And Abraham's like, no, it was my money. That's not how it works. And I have a feeling I obviously don't know Abraham at all, but just based on stories that I've heard from other people, like I would assume that if this guy actually needed help, he probably would have helped him. But it was like the way he came, like, "You have to share this with me. I went in for you." And Abraham, who doesn't make a lot of money, has the $5, is probably just like, "No, and you actually owe me $1 for the change because they were $2 each." I'm just making up stuff now. Anyways, Abraham said no. It upset Mike. So he took him to court and said he bought the tickets for himself with his own money, put them in his wallet, and Abraham went into his wallet and stole them. Nice fucking try, Mike. Jury didn't buy it, and Abraham was not ordered to pay anything to Mike. And I really hope that Mike would have had to pay for the legal fees because it's gross. Still, though, even going through all of that, he still felt this obligation to help those around him that were deserving. But I think he was struggling with trying to find that balance because like people just wouldn't, like they wouldn't let up. There was no boundary or line drawn in the sand. His second son's mother said that people were actually writing him from jail who don't know him, asking him for money. Then in October 2008, he is approached by a woman who doesn't seem to want anything from him. She actually wants to help him and do something for him. She wants to write a book about him. And this is a woman named Doris Moore who goes by the name Dee Dee. She had a successful nursing staffing agency, recruitment agency, and she reached out to Abraham after meeting his realtor. I guess they were friends, and she was talking about wanting to write a book about somebody who had a really good rags to riches story. And she said, oh, like you should contact my client Abraham. Now, Dee Dee's upbringing, very different from Abraham's, although she also says that she has a lot of love and respect for her mother and that she had a saint of a mother, and Abraham very much loved his mother as well. It sounds like her upbringing was like very middle class though, and she didn't struggle. She was a nursing assistant, and then she started a staffing agency in that field and was allegedly making a lot of money. She also had a lot of like side hustles, like selling Mary Kay and prepaid cell phones that she was saying was generating just on that side hustle like $10,000 a month. So she appeared to be doing the right things in life. So Dee Dee said when she met with Abraham, it became very apparent that he needed help managing his money more than anything at that point. So she proposes that she can help him manage his money. She'll be his financial advisor. Not only will this allow him to conserve some of this money because a lot of it is being spent on others and it's depleting, but she can also help like kind of be the middleman to the bad guy to say like he's done lending money right now. So he sees somebody who's sophisticated, somebody who has a successful job, somebody well off and who is not asking him for money. And you know, I would assume that would probably be a relief to have. Really, by the time he had met Dee Dee, he had about $1.5 million in cash left and only about $3 million in assets from that $17 million. So she says she's going to take the pressure off. She's going to transfer all of his assets into a company for him, his own company, like Abraham Shakespeare Limited. And then this way it shelters everything. Nobody can pull from it because it's under the business. What Abraham didn't know was that by January 2009, so just 2 or 3 months later, the ownership of his home was transferred to American Medical Professionals, which is the agency, the company name of Dee Dee Moore's company. Then other assets of Abraham's were being transferred into American Medical Professionals company. More than 2/3 of what Abraham owned was under Dee Dee Moore's company. And then she starts living life like for herself more lavishly. In February, she bought a brand new Corvette for her boyfriend. In March, she bought herself a brand new Hummer. She went on this super luxurious vacation. Meanwhile, Abraham's account is sitting at $44,000. So his friends that are meeting this new like financial advisor of his, they're getting bad vibes. And generally, it is your loved ones that usually start to see the red flags before you. But part of that was she was aggressive. Like she was going to people that owed Abraham money and being like, pay up, but wasn't putting that money back into Abraham's account. She was keeping it for herself. And unfortunately, what Abraham didn't know about Dee Dee is that when he met her, she was making her own money, but she was spending it way faster than she was making it. She was behind on her mortgages, her bills. She had racked up huge debt on her credit card. Yet, after she meets and starts working with Abraham, she's living large. Not only did she buy these new vehicles, go on these luxury vacations, she had a ton of brand new expensive jewelry and $1 million in her bank, all gifted by Abraham, she said. Only 7 months after Abraham met Dee Dee, and only 3 years after he won his huge lotto winning, he suddenly went missing in April 2009. At first, it absolutely seemed like a possibility that he just got tired of it all and he did want to disappear. His friends and family, they knew that he was under a lot of pressure. Everybody coming to him was just too much. And I would assume too, like just by the way he's described wanting to give and then having that like burden and heaviness of not doing that anymore probably also would have been something hard for him. So it wasn't far-fetched that they thought he just couldn't take it anymore, hopped on a plane, took off somewhere. The only problem with that, though, is his mom just could not accept the fact that there had been no contact and she hadn't even known of a plan. Of course, there had been talk about, I want to get away. I want my old life back. But it was never like, oh, I'd really love to go and live here. I think this is what I'm going to do. And had not contacted her for, weeks. At this point, they were so close. Meanwhile, though, they have Dee Dee also contacting them. She's saying he's fine. She's been in contact with Abraham. And at this point, he's just laying low because he just can't deal with everybody harassing him. He's just not at the point where he's ready to say where he is or how long he's going to be gone. Some of his friends and family are also getting the occasional text from him, so they're kind of holding on to hope. It's about 6 months that goes by of them just not knowing and being unsure of what boundary to cross or not. Like, is he really wanting to be away right now and just needs his time? And we're kind of overstepping by filing a missing persons report. But his cousin finally makes the decision that he needs to go to the police. During that meeting, he lays it all out there. He says, that he won a bunch of money, all of the weight that had been put on him because of that, and that the only person who kind of seems to know that he's okay is Dee Dee Moore. So the investigators call her and ask her to come in for just a meeting, and she is more than happy to help. Just from that first meeting, they quickly realize that she's definitely the type of person that they can get a lot of information from, whether Abraham's okay or not, because she just would not shut up.
He is gone, okay?
He is missing.
He
wants to be missing.
7 months ago, he has not had a word to anyone.
He wants to be missing because he wanted to pretend he was dying of AIDS so that he doesn't have to pay child support and people won't look for him if he's dying of AIDS. It was a videotape of him having sex with a 14-year-old girl. My family's being affected. My mom's got heart problems. She's over my house right now cleaning for Thanksgiving. My own parents were scared to come to my house for Thanksgiving.
Why?
Because of all this stuff happening.
Well, how do they know about all this stuff?
Because I'm honest with my family.
I honestly can't look at you and believe a word that's come out of your mouth. You have lied and lied and lied.
When it comes to trying to get information about like where Abraham is, when he's coming back, why he's not in contact with anybody, she is like all over the place with different scenarios. The amount of times the story changed just like in this meeting is outrageous. She went everywhere from like he's on a cruise, he's in the Bahamas, he's in the Caribbean getting treatments for AIDS, but he doesn't really have AIDS. He just doesn't want to pay child support, so he's saying that he has AIDS so that people will feel bad for him and then he doesn't have to pay child support. She also said that he was in Haiti and couldn't get reception because of an earthquake. Like the most disturbing lengths that she had gone to was that he was in hiding because there was a video that was being threatened to be leaked of him with a 14-year-old girl. and he was laying low so that he didn't get charged. I don't even know what the purpose of like saying a story like that would be, true or false, because she still is saying, I can't divulge where he is. Like, I need to protect him. I promise I wouldn't tell anybody. And it's like, okay, like a promise is a promise, but when somebody is being inappropriate with a child, like that promise is allowed to be broken. So the argument was very invalid, and I think showed a lot of her own morals and character. Especially because it's not true. There's no video out there. And at least if you're going to make up a lie, like make up one that doesn't make you look like a piece of trash too. Anyways, she says she can't tell them where she is because of this promise, but she says she has a video of him saying that he's wanting to leave to prove, like that this was the plan. It's a video that she's recorded. You can't see her on the video, but you can hear her asking Abraham questions, things like, does it bother you that people are always asking you for money? And where are you planning on going? And throwing out all of these ideas, insinuating that there is a plan, that he is wanting to go somewhere.
Do you get tired of people asking you for money all the time, Abe?
They don't take no for an ounce or so. I've been tired a year ago.
So where do you want to go to?
It don't matter to me. I'm not a picky person.
California. You want a foreign country. Are you going to miss your home?
Yep, I miss it, but life goes on.
Personally, videos like that give me bad vibes. Like if you are already laying out like, hey, do you not like when people do this? What are your plans? Where do you think you're going to, like, that's just red flags, uncomfortable. And I even feel like he looks uncomfortable in that video. Clearly sketchy, but not enough to accuse her of anything. So investigators decide to take the information, the tons of information all over the place that she's given them, and just keep tabs on her. Looking into Dee Dee, they find out that she definitely had a shifty past. She had been convicted of filing a false criminal report, writing bad checks, insurance fraud, and shoplifting. Now, the false crime report, I think, also just lifts the veil. Why do I try? Exposes her a little bit more, like, of her character and morals. She reported that she had been kidnapped, SA'd, taken to a storage unit, and that her assailants had stolen her Lincoln Navigator. She consents to a R test with the doctor after, an attack like this would happen. And they felt like there was no sign of an assault and that things just really were not adding up. Turns out, she just didn't have the money to pay for the loan that she used to purchase the Lincoln. And this was a hoax to try to get out of that. When she's confronted with this, she ends up just pleading no contest, and she received probation. Then she got herself into some hot water again for essentially running like a Ponzi scheme. She was taking tens of thousands of dollars from people, saying that she was going to be putting it into companies for them and making money, essentially like kind of what she told Abraham she was going to do also. Now, I know that it's so frustrating as somebody who watches true crime and even follows cases as they are unfolding. I think a really good example is the Idaho 4 case that's more recent, where it's like, why isn't anything being done? Why isn't there arrest? How long is this going to take? Like, people need justice. And it's like, these things, they do take time. Even if you have like a plethora of evidence, it takes time to put it all together so that you have all of your ducks in a row, because essentially once you take this to trial, get enough evidence that you can to go to a trial, you have one shot at it to stick, and you can't do it over again most of the time. So while they're kind of keeping tabs on Dee Dee Moore, the internet is kind of also doing the same thing. And there's a website called Web Sleuths where, people come together and chat about cases, theories. I think that in some cases, and not specifically just to like Web Sleuths, but I'm just saying like in total, like TikTok, I've talked about it a lot. There are a lot of people on TikTok that I just want to I don't know, crawl in a hole and just never go on TikTok again when it comes to talking about true crime and just like hurling out accusations, trying to destroy people's reputations without zero shred of evidence. Yeah, it's a funny place out there. Anyways, but sometimes it can be really productive, like in this case. So investigators were getting tips from these like online detectives at Web Sleuth that basically all of Abraham's assets were in Dee Dee's company's name. And they passed this on to detectives like, hey, do we know what the reason is for this? And this is a huge help because, like I said, these are just online folks. They're getting these access to the information faster than investigators are able to put enough for a valid reason for a search warrant. So that allowed them to also explore other avenues. And when they looked into Abraham's cell records, it was really telling. Up until April 6th, he was constantly on his phone, whether that be making calls or incoming calls. And that's, you're probably like, Sherrilyn, that's not really a big deal. We're always on our phone. Yes, but the majority of us, I think, text. There are some people who just still love a good old phone call. I'm actually getting better at that with my anxiety. I used to be like, oh my God, my phone's ringing. And now I'll be texting someone and be like, can be dealt with much faster in a phone call. So pat on the back. But anyways, Abraham didn't text. Okay, so all of this activity on his cell phone records up until April 6th was strictly incoming, outgoing calls. After the 6th, there's 0 calls going out or being picked up. There are calls coming in from family, but never being picked up. And then the only activity that was coming from that cell phone was the occasional text, which was something that was kind of providing a little bit of hope to his loved ones, but in their gut, they knew, just did not want to say anything out loud. Like they didn't feel like it was Abraham because Abraham never texted. He could not read or write. Then in December, there is this small shred of hope. Dee Dee and Abraham's mother, Elizabeth, are out for dinner. During the evening, Elizabeth gets a phone call. She answers and the caller says, "It's me, your son, Abraham." And she says, like, it doesn't sound like my son. And he says, yeah, I know, I've got a cold, like I'm a little congested. I just wanted to let you know that I'm going to be back home soon. I don't know when, but I'm going to be back home soon. And I just wanted to check in with you. And she says, okay, and ends the call. After dinner, mother instinct is just very, very strong. And she contacts the police. They're able to trace the call that came through, and it went to a prepaid cell phone that they were also able to track the GPS on, and it was at like a little strip mall close by. So they whip over there. When they pull up, they see Dee Dee getting out of her car and walking over to a man sitting in another car and hands him something. As soon as she leaves, they let her leave. Police surround this car that she had walked up to. They take a man out of it and they bring him in for questioning. His name is Greg Smith, and he's somebody who was very close to Abraham. Actually, he was the friend that Abraham was really close with that Abraham would do odd jobs for him at his barbershop just to keep it all nice and fresh. He tells police that Dee Dee had recently reached out to him, and he said that she was crying and she was like, everybody thinks that, there's something wrong with Abraham and that maybe I've had something to do with it because he transferred a bunch of stuff into my company, but he's fine. He's making his way back on his own terms. I need you to call his mom, just be him, say everything's okay, that he's coming back, just so that everybody will get off my back until he comes home. And she's like, if you do this, I'll give you $300 for it. He says he felt like something was off, but just kind of tried to convince himself that, all right, this is just going to be a story when Abraham gets back. And that his friend truly didn't want to be found. So, he's also kind of helping Dee Dee help him. So he agrees. He said it was Dee Dee's plan to invite Elizabeth out for dinner that night. She wanted to take her out somewhere because then there'd be like background noise of the restaurant and stuff like that and make it a little bit harder to hear that it clearly wasn't her son's voice. So he makes the call and he's expecting to hear from his friend. Like the next day, Dee Dee will, say like, oh, Greg took care of it. And I don't know, just there was that false hope that, all right, I'm going to hear from Abraham. He doesn't, so he's trying to call his cell phone, and then he thinks like, hey, maybe he's actually trying to avoid Dee Dee. And she's just in like some la la land thinking like, oh, he's coming back. He calls him again and kind of says that like, what is going on? You need to call me back. Like, I'm freaking out now. He gets a reply from Abraham. It's not a phone call though. He gets a text reply. It says, I'll call you in a little while. Perfect grammar, perfect punctuation, capitals, lowercase, did not sit right with Greg. He obviously is very good friends with him and knows he cannot read or write too. So he's like, I'm going to keep in contact with her, see what I can find. And that's when he kept that meeting to meet up and get the money. And then the police interjected and brought him in. The police say, yeah, we've been talking to Dee Dee too. She's telling us the same thing, but you cannot trust this woman. Like, do not believe anything that comes out of her mouth. At this point, as far as we're concerned, Abraham is a missing person, and we believe it could be more than that and that she's involved, but clearly she trusts you. So we need you to go undercover. So he went undercover. He said the first time that he had met up with Dee Dee after, deciding to go through with this, there was like vibes like that she obviously was feeling like maybe nerves or something like that, where she was patting him down. And he's like, whoa, like if you don't trust me, like get out of my car, don't call me, get out of here. And she chilled out and was like, no, I'll stay. Funny thing is though, he didn't have a wire on him. He had rigged up this like little Red Bull can to have a mic inside of it with this like styrofoam around it, so it still felt like something was in there, and the can was open, and he was even like ashing his cigarette in there to really play it up. I thought that was brilliant.
Smith figures out the perfect way to help. He removes the top from a Red Bull can that inserts a digital recorder. Whenever he meets with Moore, he has it in his car, like it's an ashtray. She has no idea.
Well, they'll never know about you anyway. I'll never give you up. You know what I'm saying?
Ever.
Man, I'm so deep in this with you right now. If you go down, I go down right now.
She starts to, get comfortable. And at this meeting, where for so long she's been like, Abraham's fine to everybody. He's just here. He's chilling out for a little bit. He's coming back. This time she says she's concerned about Abraham, and they really need to work together to try to help find him, because he should have contacted her by now. As Greg continues to talk to Dee Dee and keep in contact with her, it just seems like things are more grim. She says that she knew that a drug dealer named Ronald had been threatening Abraham before he went missing, and that she felt like Ronald probably killed him. Now, instead of working together to find this Ronald, she tells Greg she needs somebody to come into the picture to take the blame for the murder that maybe Ronald did, so that investigators can get off of her back. So Greg just kind of wraps things up with like, okay, I actually might know somebody who can help, and I'll get back to you. He didn't really know a guy, but the police knew a guy. He was an undercover agent who was going to pose as a family member of Greg's, who was a drug dealer that was about to do 20 plus years for a drug deal, gone wrong. And he would probably be willing to take the fall for this murder if she paid him $50,000. So she and Greg meet up with this cousin in a parking lot. And initially, Dee Dee's reluctant, like, well, why would you even do this for me? And he's like, well, I'm going in anyways. I figured this really helps us both. I need $10,000 up front. And then when I'm in jail, you need to give monthly payments to my family to take care of them while I'm away. And she's like so appreciative and like, this is going to make you so popular. You don't even know. You're going to be a legend. She doesn't confess anything though. She just says she believes something happened to him and that he wasn't alive.
This situation has gotten big. I'm in over my head.
We can do this, but I'm going to need a body.
Why would you do that though for me?
I'm going anyhow.
So you do this, you're going to be very popular person. You're gonna be a legend.
So the cousin, he says if this is going to work and I go and I confess to this, they need to believe me. I mean, anybody can confess something off the street, even if you've done it and you're trying to do the right thing by coming forward. There is still an investigation. It's not like you're like, okay, let's just slap the cuffs on you right now. We're going to take your word for it. So he's like, I need more. Like, they're going to want a body to know that he's dead. They're going to want a weapon that was used to kill him. So she says, like, okay, I'll try to find out if I can find anything, but I think there is a body.
Once I go in here and confess to this shit, they done with you. Because they definitely gonna want the fucking body.
Okay. Deal. Like I said, I know there's a body. I'll fix everything where he's at and everything. And then, what do you want?
50 grand.
Okay.
So after the undercover cop leaves, Greg stays with Dee Dee, and he says to her, if you know of a murder weapon, like I don't know if you do. If you do, we need it. You need to give it to me. And then that is kind of like our safety to make sure that, you know, even though he's my cousin, you know, he's not going to back out or anything. And we have something to pin on him and get attention off of you. So the next time he sees her, she's got a gun. It's a Smith & Wesson, and he brings it to the police after seeing Dee Dee, and they are able to trace it back to Dee Dee purchasing it. That's not all. Then 4 days after giving Greg this gun, she actually takes Greg to the place that she says Abraham is buried. This was under a concrete slab that was actually behind one of her houses in Woodland. And she says they need to get the body off of there, you know, let Greg and his cousin deal with it, get rid of the body. She'd actually bought a trough that she wanted to have the body burned in to get rid of any evidence that was on him. So Greg's like at this property hearing this. This is about his very good friend, but he's like, hey, let's not get out of the car right now. We don't know like who's following us, not even just like law enforcement. Just go over you to the spot. And there was this like metal like rebar that was on the property. And he told her to just go and take that bar and just put it on the area and then come back. That way, you know, she could get out of there. He could plan something in the evening or, you know, where it was a little bit more private. This was like a pretty like private property, but you know. So they end their meetup and he goes straight to the police. The police raid the property and they start digging up this area where she's left this pipe. Sadly, at this point, there was absolutely, you know, no happy ending for his family and friends who were just holding on hope this whole time that he was okay. Because on January 28th, 2010, he was discovered. Abraham's body was buried 9 feet under a 30-foot by 30-foot concrete slab on Dee Dee Moore's property. The lengths that this woman went to conceal him were just like diabolical. Like his jeans and his jacket had the shoes or the zippers and buttons missing. And his shoes were also missing to avoid any metal detection from like the shoelace little eyelets and the buttons and the zippers. So it was all removed so that no metal detector would pick it up. And the clothes that he was wearing are the same ones that were in the video that Dee Dee had filmed, like asking where he wanted to disappear to. Now, this doesn't look good. Obviously, they want to talk to Dee Dee, but before they can get in contact with her, she contacts the police and says that she wants to come and talk to them and tell them what really happened.
You don't ever believe
I was
me
trying
when
to
I
do
say.
that. Thank you.
You don't ask me for you don't protect me. You won't do nothing. You don't care if I'm killed. You don't care. You don't think it's a big deal. You think I've done this. You think I took a gun and shot somebody.
Look at the bright side. If you can convince me, you can convince anybody.
But you think I took a gun and shot
Am
this
I right?
man.
If you can convince me, you can convince anyone. So calm down. I'm not yelling at you.
Well, I have lied to them because I've been scared of this man, and they don't believe me. I asked for protection.
Okay.
They kept asking me. They knew I was keeping something from them. They knew I had kept hiding something. I'm not telling them everything because I am really scared. They don't believe me. I ask if they can give me protection, and I tell them. After last night, I didn't care.
Okay.
Once I found out that he really died, I didn't care. I'd rather be dead myself. I don't care. I want him in jail.
All right. Time out. Now, this man that you're supposedly scared of, who are we referring to?
The guy's name's Ronald, and Ronald exists. He even threatened. James Shakespeare, I talked to him. He threatened him, because James called me, because he got a threat from Ronald, too. He threatened him so bad that he went to the sheriff's department and filed a false report to say the man was still alive.
Now, all of a sudden, Dee Dee starts to tell investigators about this Ronald that she had told Greg about. She said that Ronald was responsible and that he had only told her that Abraham was buried on her property after the fact. Then, again, she loves to change the story in the same conversation. She says she saw Abraham get shot. He was shot because this huge drug deal that he was involved with went sideways. And then the dealers went and emptied her safe that had like a bunch of Abraham's money in it for safekeeping, but they kept her alive to continue collecting money from her. When investigators are like, yeah, the bullets that were found in Abraham's body actually belong to your gun. She's like, yeah, my safe was actually open, and Ronald ran and grabbed the gun from there and shot him with my gun. Please. She changed her story so much that at one point she even implicated her 14-year-old son, saying that he had walked into the room during the middle of an altercation with Abraham and herself, and that Abraham was choking her, and her son shot him to defend his mother. Her stories were so outrageous that the detectives were literally like, you need to leave the station. Like, they were so annoyed. They just told her to go so that they could like put everything together for a proper arrest warrant. Like, that is actually so embarrassing. Can you imagine being that stupid and bad at lying that they're just like, get the fuck out of here? I don't know why it killed me. So while they're talking to people in Abraham's life, trying to get as much information that they can to put a case together, they find out that Dee Dee had given more people than just Greg money to keep the charade up that Abraham was still alive. It was always like, hey, this is to protect Abraham. This is what he's asked me to do. He's even asked me to give you some money as a thank you to do it. And being the type of guy that Abraham was, like always thinking about people and wanting to make sure they're okay and taking care of them for, taking care of him. It made it more believable. So there were times that a friend of his would say like, oh yeah, I saw him. Or even his cousin giving his mother a Christmas card at Christmas time, obviously Sherrilyn, with money in it saying that it was from Abraham. And that just sucks. Like, can you imagine, thinking that you want to think the best. Of course, nobody wants to go to the worst case scenario, especially when it's your family. And then just think like, oh, okay, yeah, he wants me to, I'm going to do this for him. And really, it was just a lie. And he was buried in concrete the whole time. Now, Dee Dee's cell phone ended up being a big help. She and Abraham had been texting, like this whole time that he's gone. But when they pulled up the data, both Abraham's location and hers were pinging off of the same tower, meaning if he was like in Haiti or Bahamas or wherever he was that week, the phones wouldn't be together. Her ex-husband was also brought into questioning and kind of gives you like an insight of how Abraham got to be buried under 9 feet of concrete. He tells them that in the first couple weeks of April, Dee Dee called him to come to her property and dig a hole for her that she wanted to bury garbage in. He said he went out, he dug the hole for her, didn't think anything of it, and then 2 hours later, she calls him to come back and fill it. And when he comes, it's later in the evening. It's pretty dark out, so he's just getting the job done, and he didn't, bend over to look to see what kind of garbage was in the hole. We know now that there was no garbage in there. It was Abraham's body, and he was just putting dirt over it. And then Dee Dee had contacted a contractor to fill, that top part off and make a larger concrete pad that she said she was going to park her boat and car on. All while this is happening, Dee Dee is out there and she's talking to the news reporters trying to prove her innocence. Like I'm telling you this, she does not shut up and she thinks she's smart, and it's annoying.
Dee Dee Moore started with one message but quickly shifted gears when asked about the murder of Abraham Shakespeare.
Because I have never hurt that man. He knows everyone knows I would never hurt that man in any way.
Did you murder Abraham Shakespeare?
Absolutely not. And
Dee Dee, you indicated you know who pulled the trigger.
I have given all the information to the Sheriff's Department.
The Sheriff's Department found Shakespeare's body at her boyfriend's house, buried under a concrete slab. How did Shakespeare die? Shot in the head, according to Dee Dee Moore.
They already discussed everything with me.
What did they say? He was shot in the head?
Look at your attorney's last
Yeah. Do you want to shut the cameras off now?
Dee Dee made it clear she knows more than she can say, that she's scared, and she knows why she's considered a person of interest.
With the situation and how it went down, I wouldn't believe myself. I would say, lock her up. I would, but there's always two sides to every story. There's always more to any situation. God up above knows I didn't shoot that man, and that is the only person I have to answer to.
Ultimately, the physical evidence was very damaging for Dee Dee. The 2 bullets from her gun were the ones that were found in Abraham's chest, and there was also blood found on the carpet in that house. She also could not get a hold of Ronald that apparently killed him, so that did not do, well for her. And she just kind of was trying to make people believe that this was like Ronald's plan the whole time, to just pin this on her. And the detectives are like, okay, but you could get a hold of Ronald, to tell him, earlier before, to tell where Abraham is and all that stuff. But you can't get a hold of him now, like when your life is on the line.
Because I told you to begin with, I didn't know his name, his real name. I told you Ronald was his made-up name, probably. I wasn't sure of his real name.
Probably now. Now, what's his real name then?
I don't know. You never bothered giving me a book where you looked through it to see if I could identify the guy. You never did anything like that.
I asked you to give me a phone number the guy called you from. You could never do that.
The guy didn't call me. That guy did not call me. When Ronald called me, it was unknown.
Oh.
But that guy never called me. The guy that shot him never called me. After that night, I never seen that guy again.
You never gave me Ronald's number either. Right? This is your story. Let's get it straight. So this guy kills Abraham Shakespeare, leaves you alive for you to give him $5,000 or $10,000 here or there to another guy that you don't know.
Look at my bank statement.
To another guy that you don't know.
We have looked at your bank statement.
So another guy that you don't know, and I guess that's the guy that you'd put the money on the back porch, and then the guy would just sneak up in the middle of the night and take the $5,000 or $10,000 and leave. Is that the story that we're going to go with? I mean, really, I've got children's books that are written better than that.
Yeah.
But no, the money's not the motive. But no, there's a guy that I don't know his name, that I call this guy Ronald, that I was going to pay another guy to be Ronald.
That sneaks up and takes money off the back porch.
Dee Dee, come on.
Needless to say, they didn't believe there was a Ronald, nor do I. And on February 18th, 2010, she was arrested and charged with first-degree murder in the death of Abraham Shakespeare. What police believe is that on April 6th, 2009, Abraham had confronted Dee Dee about not being able to have access to his money. A friend of Abraham's who met Dee Dee through Abraham had said that she had a conversation with Abraham, a month before he disappeared, and he said that he was concerned about his accounts and he was getting ready to make an appointment at the bank. When Dee Dee finds this out, she tells that friend, do everything you can to prevent him from going to the bank, because right now there's not really much in there due to setting up the business, and she didn't want Abraham to panic. There's really no way of telling how that last meeting with them went, whether he had already confronted her on the phone and was meeting with her in person, and she was already prepared to shoot him when they met up, or if he confronted her and a fight started and then she shot and killed him. Regardless, though, she strongly denies being the one to do it. And during her trial, it was embarrassing. She was all over the place. Sometimes she would be laughing. Others, she's hysterically crying and shouting. Multiple times, the judge had to just tell her to calm the F down.
Ms. Moore, I'm going to tell you once again, you need to compose yourself. Do you understand that? We're not going to go back and forth. You need to compose yourself, and I'm about to give you time to do that and to speak to your lawyer. Ms. Moore, I've cautioned you throughout these proceedings that any gestures, facial expressions, audible comments showing approval or disapproval are not acceptable.
She wanted to take the stand, but was advised not to. And just based off listening to her interviews and the stories from people who were talking to her, hearing what she was saying, I do think that she probably believed that she could have convinced a jury and talked her way out of it. But the more important or insulting thing is that she actually thinks that she is good at bullshitting and lying, and that people believe her. And it's no one believes you, honey. The investigator on the case actually was one of the witnesses who she even tried to manipulate him. She told him that she was attracted to him and that they were going to get it on when all of this was done. And, when he realized that Ronald did this, he was going to pursue her.
Yet another courtroom shocker. Detective David Clark testified Moore got so desperate after he caught her in another lie that she offered to have sex with him.
She told me that she could get a free room at the Hard Rock Casino and her perform sexual acts on me.
And okay, she even called her dad at one point. This was when heat was on her, but he testified to this and basically said, Dad, you're old. You've lived your life. It's been a good run. I need you to take one for the team and take the heat off of me and confess to this and go to jail.
She said, well, you're old, you're getting old, and all this stuff. The investigator asked, okay, so basically she was just asking if you would take her place in all this? Donegan replied, basically. However, when deputies asked Dee Dee's dad if she ever lied, Patrick Donegan replied, quote, she tells the fibbiest fibs.
What the fuck is wrong with people? Her poor dad. Ugh. Anyways, some of the strongest evidence actually came from a surveillance video of a trip that Dee Dee took to Walmart, where she's seen on video buying a tarp, gloves, duct tape, cleaning supplies, all of which were found near Abraham where he was buried. That is something I just will never understand. Why would you buy all of that shit together? You might as well just roll up in the store with the body on your back being this, I need this for this. That's how obvious it is to me. Also, though, if I see somebody buy a tote, I'm what the fuck? There was a guy ahead of me in Dollarama the other day. All cleaning supplies, toady stuff, gloves, sketched me out. I was okay, I'm going to be keeping my eyes out on the news. Thankfully, the jury did not buy any of her bull crap. And after only 3 hours of deliberating on December 10th, 2012, she was found guilty of killing Abraham Shakespeare. She was ultimately sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Like I said, she doesn't shut up. There's lots of interviews out there with her in jail, and she still denies her guilt. She says her facts weren't presented and that she wants people to know, do you really think do you think I'm this stupid? You think I'm this stupid to put all of this money in my account, bury him on my property? Yeah, honey, we do think that you're that stupid. You didn't think you're going to get caught, and you got caught.
In my case, none of my facts came out, or I would not be here. If my facts came out, I would have never got convicted. If I would have known he was in my yard, don't you think that, why would I lead him back there? Do you think I'm really that stupid? Do I look really that stupid of a person do I look that stupid? That's what people make me think. Do you think I'm that ignorant? Do you think that if I knew that man was dead in my property, I wanted to know what they did to him. I wanted to know. I kept looking.
The problem with trying to believe her is that she's always, oh, my facts weren't shown. Your story is never it's changed even more now. Now it's gone from like she doesn't even know if Ronald was there. She thinks it's a woman named Denise, and it never happened over drugs or anything like that. And lately it's been that Abraham's friend Greg Smith, the one who went undercover, he's the killer, and he killed Abraham because he thought Abraham was sleeping with his wife. Beyond crazy, like, isn't even, like, that's insulting, because I consider myself a little bit crazy from, here to there, if I'm not medicated. And, like, I'm insulted. Like, you're terrible at lying. I don't know. It's just, like, there's no right that can ever be done in a situation like this. Like, Abraham should have never lost his life at all. And he's like, what? Like, for what? And you actually think now, like, people are going to believe you? It's disgusting. And this poor man, like, all he wanted to do was, like, have this chance at a life that he could have only dreamt of. It did not go the way, that he probably thought that it would have. He just wants to give back. He spent so much money on other people doing good, barely any on himself. He's taken advantage of at every turn, and then ultimately loses his life because of somebody's disgusting amount of greed. I completely understand, after like looking into this case, why people collect their winnings sometimes, like wearing scream masks and stuff like that, just so that nobody knows who they are. And I do think that should be a routine practice. I don't know if this has been passed in Florida, but there was a bill where winners of the lottery's identities were going to be concealed for, I think, 90 days. And Dee Dee talked about that. She actually said, yeah, she agrees with it. These people should be protected from bad people. Not her, but bad people. There was something wild that I learned about this too. In 2017, Abraham's baby mama, Antoinette Andrews, won $1 million. She won off of a $20 scratch card, which is just crazy. Like, the odds of her winning in general, but then like on top of somebody in her life already also winning the lottery was, just crazy. I hope she's doing well and that she didn't like feel any of like the same burden. I know like the amounts were not even close, but still, I mean, like that's a lot of money, and people do come out of the woodwork for anything. From what I understand, Abraham's hope for his sons, and having just something for their future, it's still there. That $1 million that he put in trust is still in trust until they're 18 years old. So, yeah, I hope that everybody can, somehow find a positive in moving forward in life and do good with it and have like a good start to a good, successful life. People just suck, That's the vibe that I've had, especially reading this one. I think I go through so many emotions. You got to let me know if you also feel that way. There's some cases where you just like, there's such a range of emotions. Some of them can like make you just sit there and cry. Some of them can like make your blood actually boil. And this one is just like, I just felt like so like a pit in my stomach. I'm just so sick. And I'm just like, people fucking suck. Like, why? And I think that's part of my curiosity in true crime. Like I just cannot understand how somebody can do something like this to another person and think that they're actually going to get away with it. Even in this case, like, not to say that her plan from the get-go was to murder him, but what did you think was going to happen when you have transferred everything of his in your business? Just batshit bananas. And this broad is one of the worst. And it's the fact that she still denies it and thinks she's good at manipulating people. Like, you're not I'm insulted that you think you're manipulating people. You suck. All right, that's it for me today. I gotta go. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe so I can continue doing this for a living. I do love and I appreciate you so much. The answer to today's riddle is, I have a neck with no head and 2 arms with no hands. What am I? And it's a shirt. I don't know why I yell the answer every time. I just, they're cute. All right. Okay. I'll see you in the next video. I'll miss you. Until then, make sure to love each other, love yourself, and I will see you soon. Bye.